to the Cream City crossover. We are live at the CCC, Triple C doing what we do. The Milwaukee Bucks are winners tonight, 128-112. Beating down the Toronto Raptors is a grudge match, if you will, after the first one. This is a good win. Great win for the Milwaukee Bucks. Again, if you're just joining the Cream City crossover, we're on YouTube. We're on Twitter. We're doing our thing. Send a message to me at TCIIESQ, and we'll read your comments on the show. It's the Guru, Trey Crosby III.
Chris King.
John Tyus.
There we go. Everybody's in the building. Again, a 128-112 victory for the Milwaukee Bucks. Go through some stats here. Damian Lillard, 37 points, 13 assists, 4 rebounds. He made some great looks. We'll get into all that. I thought he had some of the assists, 13. Some of that number is because Malik Beasley couldn't miss. He was 8 for 11 from 3. Malik Beasley, 30 points, 4 rebounds. Brook Lopez, 10 points, 8 boards, 4 assists. And Chris Middleton in 20 minutes of work, 11 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Andre Jackson Jr., he only played 16 minutes, but I thought it was an impactful 16 minutes. Did not score. I don't even think he took one shot. He took one shot. No points, but an impactful 16 minutes for Andre Jackson Jr. Bobby Portis in 30 minutes goes 18 and 7. Pat Connaughton with 3.7 7 boards. Marjon Beauchamp went out with a wrist injury. He scored 4 points before he left. 15 minutes for your boy, Thanasis Antetokounmpo, who I thought played some high-level basketball for an Antetokounmpo not named Giannis. 2 points, 2 boards. Thought he played great defense. He was 1 for 5, but a good job from him. And then campaign with 16 minutes was up 13 points. Again, it's a 128-112 victory if you're just joining the Cream City crossover. We appreciate it. Appreciate everybody for listening in and watching tonight. Let's get this thing started with what we saw from the Milwaukee Bucks. And again, I think everything started and ended with Damian Lillard. Again, 37 points, 13 assists. Damian Lillard tonight, and that's what I'm going to talk about in my opening a lot is the play of Damian Lillard. Well, a couple things. One, but defensively, the word I wrote this down during the game, connected. The Bucks defense throughout the majority of the game looked connected to me. Everybody was well-connected machine. They looked like they were making their switches and making their rotations very well. I appreciate it. And then the effort and energy of Andre Jackson Jr. was infectious throughout the game. But then I go to offense and I look at what Damian Lillard was doing. Whenever, and again, we've talked about this before with the Bucks, it's the point of attack defense. And when you're point of attack defense, if you're not able to stop penetration when the ball gets started, if you're not able to stop any of that or get in front of anybody, to at least slow a guy up, when guys are able to get into the paint and into the lane, it's much easier because there's nobody there. Brook has to come up, make some stops. There's just so much room for shooting, layups, or passing out. And that's been a problem for the Milwaukee Bucks. Tonight, we saw Damian Lillard unleashed, and he was able to split double teams, get around double teams. He looked like he had that burst back. And I know he's missed 2 games with a calf injury, but the burst was there. Everything was there. He was able to get to the cup, get to the rim. And you talk about those passes again, 13 assists. He made a ton of great high-level passes. I think he did end up with 3 or 4 turnovers, 4 turnovers tonight. So I think early he had a couple turnovers. But this game really changed when Adrian Griffin called that timeout. The Bucks were down 8-2. Adrian Griffin calls a quick timeout. And after that, I believe the run was like 32-12. It was a 34-12 run, extended run. The Bucks went on. The Bucks really didn't look back. They led at one point by 33 points. And I also say this because there were a lot of people that were complaining about Adrian Griffin late in that game because the Bucks were up by 33, and then the lead dwindled down, I think, to as low as 12 for Toronto getting back into it. And a shout out to Toronto for playing well and getting themselves back into the game. Scotty Barnes had 29, 9, and 7, so he had a good game. And Grady Dick came in and did some things. Siakam didn't really play in the fourth, but I thought they had some good moments from a lot of guys. But shout out to Adrian Griffin for not panicking, because I think a lot of people, as that league got down to 24 and 22 and 19 and 18, they got scared. And I think Adrian Griffin had a plan, mainly because Damian Lillard was off 2 games with a calf injury. He'd already played 30 minutes going into the fourth quarter when the Bucks were up 30 or 25, whatever it was. And I think the lead had come down a little bit before that. Maybe it was 22 or something at the start of the fourth. But he didn't panic and just insert Dame back into the game, and Dame had to play 40 minutes to win that basketball game because it wasn't necessary. And there are a lot of coaches who I think would have done that. And again, not called him out, but I think that would have been, in my opinion, would have been the novice thing to do. To just, we're up by 20, we're up by 30, and now we're up by 20. I got to make sure we keep this lead. I got to put him in. And you end up, again, after Damian Lillard has a calf injury, of playing him he ends up playing 39 minutes. And I think a guy like Steve Nash would have done that, right? Some of those guys would have done that. But you don't do it. You hold off. You let your guys play. You let them work through it, and they ended up being okay. JT, let me know what you saw in a 128-112 victory over the Toronto Raptors.
Man, you know what? I've been waiting to say this all season, but I saw the best first half of basketball I've seen from the Bucks all year. I mean, they shot absolutely remarkable, and I can't expect this night in and night out, right? But they finished that first half shooting 54% from the field. They were shooting 56% from the three-point line. I mean, how often are you shooting better from the three-point line than you are technically from the field? Unbelievably remarkable first half. Shout out to Adrian Griffin for coming out the gate swinging. I love it. I absolutely love it too. They were clobbering them from the beginning, and I was really happy to see this team and see people step up with the absence of Giannis. I don't know when they announced Giannis was going to be out. I think it was a few hours before the game. Actually, maybe it came out yesterday. I didn't see it. I didn't see it till a few hours for the game. But I love how this team responded, right? Because remember, the Raptors, kicked our butts a couple weeks ago, and tonight we turned around and we didn't let that happen. Another point of emphasis I want to hit on here. The Bucks defended the three-point line extremely well tonight, holding the Raptors to 9 from 33 from 3. Obviously, Scotty Barnes wasn't going to cook us again. Siakam wasn't too successful either. There's a bunch of guys, Grady Dick, you name it. Three-point statistics look terrible tonight. And so shout out to the Bucks perimeter D. But, hey, y'all know what I'm about to say right now.
What's that?
One time for my guy, Malik Beasley. Y'all know I've been big up Malik Beasley all year. Y'all been looking at me like I was crazy. And Malik actually made me look crazy a couple times doing that. But I told y'all, Malik Beasley got the juice, and he is going to be incredible. He's going to be great for the Bucks this year as a contributor. I know there's been a bunch of discourse about whether or not he deserves a spot in the starting five, but performances like this just remind everybody what he can do. Let's talk about it. 8 for 11 from the three-point line, and I love the fact that Dame was finding them. Guys were finding him. He was literally like the old guy at the YMCA, just cherry picking, finding spots on the three-point line and knocking them down. So, man, I am excited tonight. And Bucks shot 95% from the free throw line. I know a lot of that was attributed to Lillard, but you know what? I'm going to take that because usually it's somewhere in the 60s and 70s with this team.
Well, I want to piggyback off of what you just said with Malik Beasley, because now you got to look at it like, hey, Grayson Allen to Phoenix does not sound too bad. I mean, a guy who can knock down 8 of 11 from 3, and hopefully he can do that consistently across the discourse of this season. But I also want to say that just the energy that the Bucks came out with tonight felt a lot better than the past couple of games. I felt like the Bucks just had maybe a chip on their shoulder because of all the articles coming out about AG and this and that, and I think the Bucks really locked in and played together as a team, and it was good to see them go out and get a big win.
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you one thing. It was a bad night and I said this on Twitter, but tonight was a bad night for making articles about firing the coach. 100, it was a rough night for doing that. It didn't work, and again, that's exactly what they deserved. If you're hating on Adrian Griffin going in 10 games into the season, I didn't understand a lot of it. We'll talk about it. But again, I thought, just a great game, a great night for the Bucks all around. And that's the thing. When you get those open shots, and let's think about when we talk about Adrian Griffin, when you get open shots, it's not on him. He can't make them for you. You got to hit those shots. And Beasley had a ton of open looks tonight. I talked about this as well. He's going to be up some. He's going to be down some. But tonight was an up night, and he shot the ball well. Again, I can't expect him to shoot like that every single night, but shooting at a decent clip, a reasonable rate. Listen, if you're playing with the Milwaukee Bucks, especially Dame Lillard, when he's cooking like this, he's going to get you shots, and you got to be in a position to hit those shots. And I thought the guys responded very well. Again, this was like having a 1-2 punch. You got one guy giving you basically 40, another guy giving you 30. I mean, that's a 1-2 connection. So we talked about, a lot of people have issues with the backcourt, Dame and Beasley, but you see some of why Adrian Griffin has a hard time taking Beasley out of the starting lineup, because at his best, that's the kind of production you can get. And quite honestly, if I'm looking around at, guys that could potentially be a fifth starter, I don't know that any of them could give you that type of offensive production that McNeil Beasley gave you tonight.
100%. But one thing I do want to reiterate, Chris, I'm going to let you go too, but one thing I do want to reiterate is, look, this is what you need. When a guy is out like Giannis, somebody else has to step up. Dame did his part tonight. Who else was going to do their part tonight, right? And obviously, Bobby, Mr. Reliable, was going to do his thing. Chris is still working through some injuries here, played 20 minutes tonight. Chris, Hey, you talked about it too. He looked a little hop. Something didn't look right, Chris. Here, I don't know what's going on. I don't want to be too speculative, but Chris didn't really look like himself. I think he was moving better a little earlier in the year than he was tonight. But Malik Beasley, right, stepped up tonight, stepped into his role, and said, "Look, I'm gonna put this team on I'm gonna shoulder this load with Dame, and one time for him, man. One time for my guy Malik Beasley."
And how
I gotta rub that in because y'all was clowning.
Well, how about the little bank three before half? I mean, that was elite. I damn near would have got a shot of the game, baby.
YMCA style.
Shot of the game, right?
There we go.
There we go. You feel me? The little sound. Hey, we don't have a soundboard. That's our sound effect.
That was good. I think that definitely played a shot of the game. Dame Lillard played the game with 37 and the 13 assists, 100%. Did a great job. Let's get to some of your thoughts at Trevor Thyssen says, can't wait to read the article tomorrow that Giannis is holding the team back. And that's what we were talking about, right? Like when you can't go with the Griff stuff no more because we got the big time win. Now we got to talk about Giannis. And again, some of that talk, no lie, some of that talk started up. Well, the Bucks look so much better without Giannis on the floor. See, Giannis has gotta learn how to. Okay. Here we go. Martinez Coleman Jr. I hope Giannis realizes what happens when you let Dame run the offense and the ball's moving in a nice flow. Plus, Dame is not selfish. He will get the ball to Giannis in a good position. Just got to trust it will happen. Listen, I'm going to push back just slightly on this whole thing, like as if Giannis is holding up everything. No. Damian Lillard has not played well. Don't put that on Giannis because because again, I've seen Giannis ain't afraid to let Damian run the offense. Again, go back to the first night of the year. Dame ran the offense at the end of the game with Philly, and the offense looked good. Nobody's stopping Damian Lillard from running the offense. Now, I think the only person realistically, the only person stopping Dame from running the offense is Dame. He's got to be a little more selfish. But if you run around and just hand the ball off to Giannis with 20 seconds in the shot clock, that's on you. I don't think, again, none of these, I think people think like this is like AAU basketball or like 13 and under where, we got these, we run these sets and it's rigid. And if you don't run it just like this, you're coming out the game. That's not the NBA. Yes, guys have sets. They run some horns action and all that kind of stuff. But it's, again, everybody, you get up all kinds of shots. You get all kinds of looks that you want. And again, when Damian Lillard is able to break down defense and break through double teams and get through traps and get through all that and make those decisions, great. But you can't just not do that because Giannis is on the floor. My thing is, I just can't blame Giannis. And we can't be so rigid where Damian Lillard is the only person who could ever bring the ball to the floor. That's never going to be what this offense is. That's never going to be it. Sometimes Giannis is going to bring the ball to the floor. But again, the majority of times, Damian Lillard's a point guard. Can't just give it up. Play some offense. Now, I do think Giannis will get better at screening and some of those things. Because I think some of the other guys do that a little better than Giannis for whatever reason. But yeah, I guess I just push back on some of the notion that it's all Giannis' fault that Damian Lillard can't be unleashed.
Yeah, absolutely not. I don't buy that either. And again, one thing that I think we've been saying on the show is you can't rush time. You just can't do it. You can't rush time. You can't rush chemistry. And unfortunately, you need time to develop chemistry. And it's been clear that the chemistry between Giannis and Dame is a work in progress at this point. But having said that, we have seen some incredible moments between those two. And we've seen some incredible individual performances from both too. But look, when this team gets rolling, I expect this team is about to win a ton in a row. And I think we're going to win this thing finally. If it's February, great. If it's January, whenever. I think this is going to be a special season in a regular season for the Bucks at least.
Yeah, I agree with what you said about how Giannis is kind of weird in the pick and roll. Like you mentioned it in a couple of shows before. Like he'll get off that screen and kind of just stand there and wait for Dame to pass him the ball at the three-point arc. It's like he's popping instead of rolling with the screen. So hopefully, they could figure that out. And I think Giannis being able to be a spectator to all this really will show him as well. Like, all right, maybe I need to lock in on that end of the offensive side.
Well, yeah,
you know what though?
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you good. I was going to say this though, right? That pick and pop, there's an element of Terry Stotts influence in that too, right? So I'm curious if that may be some of that he learned, right? Was that part of that what he was learning from Terry Stotts before Stotts' departure and whatever installations were in the offense at that point.
Well, I will say
I'm just a
this
little bit
too.
curious about that.
I will say this too. Like Giannis has never really been a role guy. I mean, he's kind of like a down. He's better downhill. We all know this with momentum with the ball in his hands. So I think that he's trying to do too much of that in the pick and roll.
But that's the thing, JT. It's really not even a pick and pop, because when I think of pick and pop, I think Brook Lopez. You pick and you step back out for the three. It's like a pick and stop. It's a pick. I start rolling to the basket. I get the ball, and then I don't know what to do with it. So it's very. Terry Stotts. I'd be hard pressed to think Terry Stotts would ever teach that. I don't know. Again, I wasn't in there for their install, but it just seems very odd. And so yeah, you either got to go downhill and clear things out, and keep running. Again, Giannis is very good downhill. I think he's just not used to not having the ball when he's going downhill, and so it's a different. Maybe it feels different or what have you. I can't call it. But like I said, I can't call it, but he's got to get 100% better at it. On the YouTube channel, Titonia World says all this stuff will be saved in the drafts for the next dry spell, talking about the Adrian Griffin comments and those type of things. And yeah, 100%. You think it hasn't stopped just because one game? And again, and so let's talk about again the Bucks responding. At Cooley Rock says start Andre Jackson Jr. moving forward. And again, that may be something that ends up happening. You look tonight, and one thing before I talk about the Bucks responding, you look tonight, and again, you can make impacts without shooting the ball. And that's the thing. You looked at PJ Tucker, who did that very well for the Milwaukee Bucks in the championship season. I thought Andre Jackson Jr. made a huge impact without shooting it, without doing anything. It's just the energy, the effort, the hustle, and you can be an impact player. Know your role. I listen sometimes to the Patrick Beverley's podcast. He talks about it all the time. Guys just got to know their role, and that's how you excel. And again, that's what it's about. But I thought tonight that the Bucks responded very well. Again, you came out and you lost to this same Toronto team not long ago. Was it last week? They lost to this Toronto Raptors team and had a lot of people asking questions. And then you come back without Giannis, and you just dominate. They look like they looked from the opening tip, looked like the better team on the floor, like everything was going well. And again, that's a dynamic when you have a Damian Lillard who can win games in his own right by himself. When you have that dynamic rolling for you and you add Giannis to that, the sky's the limit for this basketball team, which is why I guess I'm not in any panic. But again, I thought it was a good response game. You have a lot of people asking questions about the Bucks. What do you think about, and just your thoughts about just the response of the Milwaukee Bucks game? Do you think they responded to any question, or do you think this is just a game as usual and just so happened that the Bucks came out and looked like a cohesive, well-oiled machine tonight against the Toronto Raptors?
Chris, I'm going to let you go first on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I alluded to it earlier. Like, I think definitely people see what's going on social media. People know that Giannis came out and said what he said, and Adrian Griffin said what he said as well about the locker room. And I think they take that and they want to kind of prove that wrong and prove themselves right. I think they came out there with a mentality like, hey, it's not time to play around. We won't have Giannis, but let's go show that we can play together as a team, even without Jay, even without Giannis, even without MarJon after he goes down. And I think we saw that today.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think my thing is, I'm not sure it's so much about the response to the social media world and the overall Bucks community as much as it's about trying to live up to the expectations that they set for themselves as a team. They know they are incredibly talented. They know they're one of the NBA title favorites. They certainly know that they added a lot of firepower in this offseason. And they also know they're trying to figure out their culture. They're trying to figure out their groove. And I do think you have a lot of guys on this team that are trying to solidify their role. They're trying to solidify their spot because it's going to get to a point where it's going to become tough to compete for minutes. Once everybody's healthy, once we're rolling, once this happens, there's going to be guys where if you're not making an impact on the floor when you're on the court, your minutes are going to be reduced because, again, minutes are going to become at a premium. This Bucks team is very, very deep, and there are a lot of very talented guys that 100% could warrant getting more playing time, right? We talk about it with Pat Connaughton all the time. We're like, well, look, we're going to have to spread his minutes between, MarJon, Beasley, Andre Jackson, whomever. And I think that we're going to see that soon. So, yeah, guys know they got to step up and they got to show something now. Because if you don't do that, at some point, it's going to be you're just not going to play or you're going to get only a handful of minutes a night.
At ridiculous ridiculous. Chris Maxson says crazy three. These Twitter names. Crazy 3-point explosion. So take everything with a grain of salt. But I think Malik needs to be a guy you test the waters with. If he's hot, he plays. If he isn't, that's fine. Microwave scorers aren't consistent. Otherwise, they would just be scores. It's a great point, and I think it sums up Malik Beasley to a T. He is a microwave scorer, and some nights he's gonna be on, some nights not. Tonight was one of those nights, and again, I think kind of some of the same stuff with AJ Green to a certain extent. Obviously, he's not at the level of player that Malik Beasley is, but some nights the guys are gonna have it, some nights they won't. Moonman679 just says Dame Dollar. Rooter Hall UWLX says saw some rebounding tonight. Absolutely.
The nasty.
And then the nasty was he had some good minutes. And then Light Seraph says breakout game for Beasley and Dame. Good to see Bees, Bobby, and Brooke give up forced or good shots for better shots. More emphasis on Brooke to be a screener in P&R and dribble handoff actions. And Andre Jackson Jr. I keep saying Andre Jackson Jr. Ajax as a starter. What to do with Chris? So let's sit on Chris for 1 second before we go to the Adrian Griffin stuff. 20 minutes, and for a while, he sat at like 9 minutes for a while there, late into the third quarter. They listen, and again, people keep saying, "Oh, well, you don't know, we don't." This Chris Middleton thing, he can't get over 21 minutes. We are now, what are the Bucks now? 7-4. What's the record?
7-4.
7-4, and we're still at this point. That's 11 games in. I didn't say this. They said this. Chris Middleton, Bucks said 6, 7, 8 games. Oh, yeah, Chris will be back regular minutes. They said preseason. Oh, he's going to play 2 preseason games. He'll play just 1. It's not the end of the world. They'll play. In those questions, right? Like that's, I just think that's fair. And so I continue to look and see him play 20 minutes. I thought he played okay tonight. The turnovers become a bit much during the Raptors. I don't know if you're going to call it a comeback, but when they were playing a little bit better, he had a couple of just a bad pass, and he tried to run into he literally rolled the ball on the ground to Bobby Portis, and it ended up being a live ball turnover. Those are the kind of things that you just can't have. And I don't know, man. I look at him and I want to see him play 30-plus minutes. That's what I want to see. I want to see him get to that point. And until he does, I'm going to question his health and availability. I'm just saying. I'm sorry. I just saying because, again, we talked about this. His injuries are not the same injuries, but his injuries have spanned the course of 3 actual playing seasons. They have. And, again, I know it's early in this season, but they have. And I want to mention and point out, Titonia World said 4 turnovers in 20 minutes, the new normal. This is perfect. But again, you talk about leading team in turnovers. and he has he only plays 20 minutes. Like that's a big time, that's a big time issue. That's a problem, right? And so because if you exacerbate that out, it just continues, and it's not a good thing to see. It's not a good thing to have when you turn the ball over that much, and again, he's that careless and that loose with the ball. At times, he looks like a baby giraffe. It's like he can't stand up, and I just don't know what to do. When I'm watching that, I don't know what to say. But again, I thought he had some. Again, I will say, thought he had some good looks. Thought he shot the ball decently. I think he had some good plays. It's just it doesn't look like to me that he's put it all together. But I don't want to harp a ton on Chris Middleton. I thought, again, he's still working his way back. But that's what he looks like. And I guess that's what my main point that I want to bring into this. It's not that, like, it's the opposite. It's not that I don't like Chris or any of that. It's that he doesn't look healthy to me. And when everybody's saying, and I think healthy Chris, love it. But when everybody's saying, it's fine, don't worry about it. That's what I say. But hold on, he only played 20 minutes. They're lying about how much time he can play. He's clearly not doing that. And then when he's out there, he's playing okay. But again, I don't know what that looks like at 30 minutes. So I just want to see him healthy. And right now, I don't think that he is. And I'm not blaming him at all for some of his play. I just don't think he's healthy. That's it.
I'd rather them rest that man and then get him to a point to where he can go than to keep doing this.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. At Z Love, Balzac _8.
Bro, these names are hilarious. Some of these people are super creative with these names. Somebody gonna get you with a crispy bacon or something. I know somebody's gonna get you.
He said, please talk. I know. He said, please talk about putting Thanasis in during the first quarter. This is a statement from the Bucks and Adrian Griffin, and nobody seems to care about it. Question 4: do you think that was a statement? I don't know if I consider it if it was a statement. Maybe it was, but it certainly. And now that I think about it, it's a great question. Maybe it was, because the statement is, if you're not going to give maximum energy, if you're not going to give maximum effort, you're not going to play. And again, I think, again, too much of the Nass is, it's a little dicey. And I thought 15, 16 minutes is a little too much. But, those first 3-4 minutes of the Nass in the first quarter were strong. He was all over the place. I thought he made defense. Listen, he has made some strides as a player. I want to give the Nass a lot of credit because he looked like he's made some strides as a basketball player. Defensively, it wasn't, because I think what I've seen from him in the past is just very handsy, and I'm just bodying guys up, and I'm kind of bullying the China shop, and he still has some elements of that, but it looks a little bit more in control. He wasn't just fouling every first person he saw. I thought the Nats played really good, and those were impact minutes in the first quarter. It wasn't like he was just in and in. Those were first quarter. It was a contested basketball game at that point, and the Nats played very well in the first quarter.
Yeah, right now I don't have a problem with it because you got guys out, right? You got Crowder out, you got Giannis out, and Chris on the restrict. So, I mean, okay, if you're going to throw the Nassus in for 2 minutes max in the first quarter, fine. Again, we talk about being an energy guy, being a vibes guy, being able to make an impact when you're on the court. And, that's certainly one of the things you get with Andre Jackson Jr. And you do see a little bit of a lift in intensity with the Nassus on the court. Again, I don't want to see him play more than a couple minutes because I think that becomes problematic. But I mean, I'll take it right now. While personnel's injured.
Yeah, no, 100%. Chris, can you hear me now, Chris? I don't think. Okay, so he still can't. So we have some problems with Chris hearing this, but that's. I think he can hear some of it.
No,
but
I can't hear you. But I can hear you. No. I can hear you on the YouTube, so I'm delayed.
Okay.
But I think you're out of the chat room that we're in, so it's gonna be bad. But
okay.
I'm gonna let you guys rock. Go ahead and rock.
Okay. So all good. We have technical difficulties, but that's all right. We'll get it all cleared up. And the other thing before we get to Adrian Griffin, is I need my Ethernet cord. He says, because I think I'm lagging too. It says at Shafty Bro says any coach looks good when the team shoots 20 of 39 from three. Again, you're gonna have some of the Griff haters out there, and that's okay. Let's talk about Adrian Griffin. And there were some things that have come out very recently about AG that I don't necessarily like. I thought that they had strong, and again, we're gonna expound upon this maybe Saturday. On your T's and Q's 97.3 the game. And we can kind of get into that a little bit more. But I again, and so I want to make this very clear. I'm not calling anybody in. I'm not calling anybody specifically a racist. That's not what I'm doing. It's not at all what I'm doing. What I'm saying is, you people have to be aware that when you make comments like Adrian Griffin should be fired in the first, and it was even like, and the funny part is when the article came out, I guess whoever's running said, "Oh, well, the article was supposed to come out," because somebody made a comment that the article came out. The article came out after the Bucks won by 9 points the other night, and it was like, "Oh, well, the article was supposed to come out before that." And like, that doesn't make it any better. So you're gonna fire Adrian Griffin after 9 games? It's even worse.
Hang on. Are we? Let's be clear here. Are we talking about the Brew Hoop article?
Well, yeah, I'm talking about I'm talking about the article.
Be clear about
and again, I'm full disclosure. I didn't read it. I'm gonna tell you right now, didn't read it. I read the headline. When the headline says talking about something about firing Adrian Griffin, and it's a legitimate thing. It's a legitimate think piece about firing a head coach in his first 9 games of an 82 game season. It gives me two. There's only 2 ways I can go with that. It's either completely idiotic and stupid, or it has some racial undertones, because I don't think we treat everybody like that. And again, that doesn't mean that I'm calling, because I think it's the way you're calling. I'm not calling anybody in particular racist. I'm just saying that the article has racial undertones. Again, I've already had somebody tweet me saying that Adrian Griffin was a affirmative action hire. And so when you have that kind of sentiment,
silliest thing I've heard.
Right. When you have that kind of sentiment coming out, and so when I see some of the stuff, that's the place and the thought of which that an article or thoughts like that come from. In my opinion, that's what I see. Because again, you just look at coaches, and again, you can go down the line. That stuff nobody's getting canned within their first 10 games. That's not a thing of an 82 game season, of which you are, I think at this point now, the Bucks are 7-2 when Damian Lillard plays. And you're telling me you're going to fire a coach when your team hasn't lost when Damian Lillard plays, of which, by the way, Chris Middleton is on a minutes restriction, of which, by the way, when the big 3 plays, I believe now the Bucks I think they're either 6-1. So I believe they'll have 1 loss when all 3 of Chris Middleton, Giannis, and Damian Lillard play, and that's with a minutes restriction. The Bucks are now also 1-0 without Giannis. Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is his first game missed. Is that correct? I think I'm right on that too. Right? This is Giannis' first game he missed, right?
Is this first game or second?
Did he miss another one? I want to say it's his first.
Maybe his first.
But in any case, he was there when Dame missed those couple games. But in any event, like, it just screams of something else other than I've evaluated this thing fairly and honestly, and I've come to the conclusion that Adrian Griffin should be fired. That's not like I remember when they fired Larry Drew after a season. Larry Drew went 15-67, and the reason he gets fired was because you brought in a coach who you thought was going to be much better in Jason Kidd. Makes sense. They didn't fire him 10 games in. Larry Drew was not ready for that basketball team, and he was a bad basketball team. Larry Drew was not ready for that team. Jason Kidd comes in and immediately wins 40 games or whatever his year after that, right? So that team could have gotten better. They did get better, and they had a new coach that got them better. Jason Kidd, I'm just talking about recently. Jason Kidd then gets fired, right? Mike Budenholzer. And again, I actually didn't agree with the timing of his fire in the middle of the season, because I thought they should have had an opportunity to finish it. But nobody's like, oh my God, how could they do it? You could see the writing on the wall and why it happened. It made sense. Mike Budenholzer, he again 2018, and he starts off with the same record as Adrian Griffin, right? You start with the same record as this coach. Nobody talked about him being fired. He gets an opportunity to continue going. He does an excellent job. Nobody talks about it. And then, of course, why does he get terminated? Because in the biggest of moments, outside of one year where Giannis completely dominated everything, he made some blunders that you couldn't look over or couldn't gloss over. So everything makes sense. This, if that were to happen, would not make sense. And that's why I have to think, what are you actually trying to say? That's my problem with the AG stuff.
So yeah, I'm gonna take a little bit of a different approach, right? Because I know that you talked about the racism element of it, and quite honestly, to be clear, right? And I want to be even more clear. We're not saying that Brew Hoop was racist, and those of you guys who are tweeting them, I encourage y'all can stop. Y'all ain't got to call them that, right? Now, that said, what I will say is that there's an element of implicit bias that is present in every area of life, in the workplace and sports, which often imitates real life as well. And I think that implicit bias in sports, especially, you see that transfer not only to the hiring decisions, right, and how tough it is for coaches, especially in the NBA, even though I'd say the NBA is probably at second base, whereas your other professional sports leagues are really on first base when it comes to hiring diverse candidates. But you see that translate to guys getting jobs, the type of reporting you do on a guy, the things that you say about coaches too. You certainly see that, and I think the situation is tough with Griffin, right? Because that article came out, and listen, in my opinion, I honestly think that article sounds like a bunch of bitter guys who are mad that Bud got fired, right? And they've ignored the fact that Bud substantially regressed.
Perfect. You can disagree with Adrian Griffin being hired at the start, and I think that's what it was more so than Mike Budenholzer. And so now you're at a point where I have to get off this agenda by any means necessary. Sorry to cut you off.
No, I mean, and listen, right, and look, I'm not disputing that, but what I'll say though, right, is kind of talk about his competency and talk about how it's clearly like he doesn't know what he's doing. What is clear after 10 games in an 82 game season? I mean, seriously, like what exactly is clear at this point, right? So my issue is when I read the article and I looked through it, I was kind of thinking like, what is the point here, right? I get that you were upset about the Adrian Griffin hire, but again, he's 6-4. By the way, the best Bucks team we've seen in the last 50 years started out 6-4 the other year too. By the way, we have significant injuries that we are. I mean, I'm sorry, we have significant barriers here, right? With Chris the minutes restriction. Now you got Jay out. Now you got, right, and he's not 0-10. He hasn't completely imploded. You've seen growing pains with him as a coach, but you've also seen growing moments with him. You've also seen his stars step up. You've also seen guys, especially tonight. I get it. The article came out before tonight, right? But still, you've seen progress from some of these guys throughout the year. So I think the discourse was a little bit bogus. But I'm not going to say racism was a thing. But here's what I will say: the article mentioned Adrian Griffin getting 14 head coaching interviews. And you know what I see when you tell me somebody gets 14 head coaching interviews? I see the coaching resume isn't the problem. The coaching resume is not the problem, right? If the guy wasn't qualified, you're not going to get 14 interviews. It don't take you 14 interviews to figure out somebody's not qualified. So if he had 14 interviews and he finally got a job with the Bucks, what was the problem with all of the other places? Because you can't use the ambiguous language to say, oh, he was a cultural fit issue, right? We didn't agree with him philosophically, right? It didn't take you 14 interviews to get to that point. The man had been coaching in the league for 15 years, so you already knew that when you even called him in for an interview. And even if those interviews were a favor, right? Because sometimes it happens in the NBA where guys will interview that. You didn't get 14 of them. So what was it? And I think that's the issue with some of the criticism towards Adrian Griffin. You're starting to use these vague. You see this all the time in the NFL in the draft, right? When you have a black quarterback and there's like this coded weird language. There's some undertones and vibes in that in the criticism of Adrian Griffin, and I think that's a very valid point and concern that we see as Bucks fans. The last point, and I'm gonna get up off the soapbox, is listen. I can understand people be pounding their chest for Bud, right? And in this article talks about how Bud was better in all these analytical categories and all this other stuff, and the team looked much better in this, and this, right? I also saw a team regress about as much as possible from 2021. I mean, listen, the year after you lose in the second round, the year after that you lose in the first. So how are we gonna? We can't ignore that when we look at the overall result, the overall end result. The bottom line for the coach is his job is to do two things: motivate his players to play his best and win games. And right now, the man is 7-4, so he's clearly doing
that. And again, just by the way, if anybody ever comes to you and says, "Hey, some racial undertones in some of the things you're saying," and give you a PR lesson on what not to do, don't ever bring up that you in 2020 were down for Black Lives Matter as like your get out of jail free card. Like, hey, we all good. You see what we did back then? We down for the cause. No, don't do that. That's not what you do. That's not gonna get anybody. That doesn't get anybody thinking, you know what? That makes it. If anything, that makes me, because again, it's a thought. And again, one thing I said was hidden racism. Again, that's not the same thing. It's just like this is interesting here, but that's not the same thing. And then you kind of come out loud and be like, no, I'm down. Black Lives Matter. What do you mean? Okay, that's when we start looking at you like, and nobody told you to say that.
And here's the real rub on that, right? And I hate veering away from this because we're a post-game show, but here's the real rub on that. They came out and supported Black Lives Matter when it was popular to do so, right? When it was the socially acceptable and everybody felt like this pressure from the whole George Floyd thing. They felt like saying, so no, I'm not impressed that you said it when it was popular and it was cool to say it. If anything, it would be more impressive if you said it when it wasn't popular and you could point to consistently being about that. But, I get it here. But again, I want to close with saying that 2 points. Nobody expected the Bucks to be the 2015 Warriors and go 73-9. Nobody was calling for that from the jump, so people need to chill. And the other thing is I don't want to call these guys racist, and I want to make it clear that I'm not doing that. Yeah. But I do want to say that I do think there's some implicit bias going on when you are assessing Adrian Griffin's performance, especially when it comes to some of these different outlets.
Well said. And so we'll leave it at that, and then we'll leave it at that, and we'll get back onto that on Saturday. Nathan Marzion tweeted out the Bucks' defensive ratings, and this is why, again, this is one of the reasons why just in general I can't get on Adrian Griffin. The first 4 games, the Bucks' defense was 29th in the NBA. Okay, the next 4 games, 15th. The last 3 games, the Bucks are giving up 112.9 points a game. They have the 14th defense in the NBA right now. That'll, and as you play golf, hit the ball, that'll play. 14. If your defense can be around top 15, because again, this is a differently constructed team than the team that was with Drew Holiday, right? Like there is going to be this is not going to be a top 5 offense, top 5 defense. That's not what you're going to see. I think you can obviously 100% be a top 5 offense, but the defense is going to have to. It's going to have to be an opportunistic defense. It's going to have to be a defense that makes the plays when it's time to make the plays, for lack of a better term. So late in games, clutch situations, can your defense get the stops then? And all I can say is in the small sample size so far in the clutch, in the only time that it didn't happen necessarily was in the game when Dame Lillard didn't play. In the clutch, the Milwaukee Bucks have been that they've been a defense that gets those stops, that gets those steals, that gets those blocks, that gets those rebounds that they may not have gotten earlier in the game. Well, they are able to get them late in games, late in clutch situations. That's what you want to see. And so far, I've seen it, so I'm okay. And again, the defense, you've climbed basically 15 spots from their first 4 games to your last 3 games. That's progress. That's improvement. That'll play.
Yeah, look, I'll take. Look, you're gonna have some gritty moments. You're gonna have some pretty moments. Both are definitely a part of a season. It's an 82 game season. It's a very long season. You're gonna see that, but I do think it's important that you highlight that, right? Because when you go on NBA.com, you start looking at these stats, looking at the advanced stats. You go, oh my gosh, the Bucks are absolutely dead last here. But I think when you break it down into segments like that, and you see, hey, wait a minute, there's been some improvement here, and obviously they're gonna change in the rankings too, but. I like that deep dive by Nathan. I mean, shout out to Nate, man. But I like that deep dive by Nate and producing that content, man.
Nate, we love Nate, and we'll have Nate on the show at some point here.
That's the homie.
Probably down the line. I talked to him recently, and so he definitely loves to join the show. And again, we will start to have some. We'll start to have some people join the show probably, and then like I said, next week or so, we'll do that. I want to keep moving forward to the Giannis and Dame. I think we can be really quick on this one. Giannis and Dame, they've got to find a way to coexist when they're on the floor and when they're playing together. And so a lot of times I think what we've seen so far is Giannis by himself. Again, over the last 3 games, Giannis is averaging 41 and 11 over the last 3 games. Again, they're 1 and 2 in those 3, but 41, that's nothing. That's not too shabby. And then you look at Dame come back tonight, and again, if he plays more than 30 minutes, he could have easily, again, if he didn't have a calf strain, I think he probably does take over 30 minutes, and he probably finishes, high 30s. What do you have? What he had 34? But yeah, he probably finishes with the 40-plus point night. He doesn't. Yeah, so he had 37. So excuse me. He probably finishes with 40-plus tonight if he's able to get over 40 minutes. What do Giannis and Dame have to do to be able to get this thing to work together on a consistent basis?
Look, the first thing is they've got to play. They've got to play a lot
Point.
together, right? Like
Yep.
because I think when you play with the player, you instinctively know what they're about to do, right? You start reading things about, oh, I know what he about, and you figure that out. But that takes time to do, right? Like you're not going to do that with somebody playing 10 games. So I think that's the first thing. Is what they need to do is they need to play together to figure out each other's tells, figure out what he's doing, figure out what, and to be able to kind of read each other's body language and instinctively react off that. That's the first thing, right? I think the second thing they need to do, and I don't know if this is through conversation, maybe this is also solved through experience, but I think they both need to get a comfort with, you know, taking ownership of what happens in a certain possession. And what I mean by that is like, listen, Dame, you know you got it, you know you got that killer instinct, you know where you are a scorer. You ain't gotta defer 10 times every possession before you take that. Just go with it. Just roll with it. You good. We brought you in here to be that all NBA guard. We brought you in here to look like one of the best of all times. If you're selfish on some possessions and you getting buckets, nobody has any complaints with that. You're good with that. Second thing, though, and the third thing, though, is the point you brought up later on tonight, is they got to figure out this pick and roll. They got it, like you said, they got to figure out this pick and roll. I was trying to give Giannis credit with the pick and pop. It really wasn't the pick and. You were like, there's a pick and stop. They got to figure that thing out because once they do, that's going to be very, very, very hard to stop.
Yeah, Sky 100% is the limit on those guys. I think that is 100% correct. Again, it was a 128-112 victory. The Milwaukee Bucks beat the Raptors. I'll talk about for a second. I think that was a great point that you made. They just got to play. That's what it is. They have to play. That's the whole thing about this. They've got to play. They've got to play. They got to play. They got to play. And you can't have this. I'm out one night. I'm here another night. And we're in that lineup, and now Chris is out. Now, and again, I'm assuming Chris is probably going to be out. For the Bucks have a back-to-back. Friday they play the Hornets, and then Saturday they play the Mavericks. Chris is probably going to be out for one of those games. Just he hasn't playing back-to-backs, and then but he's out loud. Then you have Giannis. Then you have Dame has a calf. Those things you got to get those things worked out. The guys have got to play together. So I think 100% that's going to solve a lot of the issues there. Let's go moving out throughout the league as we do a league look around. The Suns are up 115 on the Timberwolves, who had an interesting game the other night. Suns got to have their guys play too. Again, they're 4-6, looking to go 5-6 right now. But the Suns, another team where Bradley Beal, their big three hasn't even made a debut together yet. Bradley Beal didn't play tonight. He was supposed to play, didn't play. Cavaliers up 50-41 in the second quarter over the Trailblazers. The Kings were up pretty big on LA, but now it's a 10-point game with 7 minutes to go. The Mavericks, of course, continue to win, and they are 9-3, 130-117 over the Wizards. The Sixers now lose back to 2 games in a row, back-to-back, 117-107. It's a big win. The Celtics got the Knicks 116-114 over the Hawks, and the Orlando Magic with a fadeaway, I believe it was a fadeaway from Paolo Banchero, got the win over the Chicago Bulls. A couple other things I want to get to, John. Did you see? So the other night, I want to ask you about this. I wish Chris was in here. If you hear, maybe once you stop lagging, you can maybe if you want to jump in at all, if you can. I want to ask you, JT, about the 5-game suspension for Draymond Green. Last night, they're playing the Minnesota Timberwolves, and a little scuffle breaks out between Klay Thompson and was that Jay McDaniels? And they start pulling each other's jerseys. And then it looked like Rudy Gobert went over to grab. So Rudy Gobert grabs Klay Thompson. And again, listen, when you're going to fight basketball, grab your own guy. Don't grab somebody else. Grab your guy. That's rule number 1. You don't grab somebody else. Grab your guy. And so he doesn't do that. And then, your second issue is Draymond comes in like a madman and just puts Rudy in a chokehold. Rudy looked like an absolute idiot. Nobody comes to his defense. I thought it was hilarious, but Draymond Green well-deservedly gets 5 games. I thought it could have been more. I think 5 is where I would have gone on that. But what'd you think about that whole entire situation?
Yeah, and look, so in my opinion, it was a bad look for the Timberwolves because here's my thing, right? Rudy Gobert, right? And there were people who were coming out saying, "Oh, nobody likes Rudy." Guys, they ain't worried about that, right? There's people who were saying that on Twitter. My thing is, you don't let somebody had a arm around one of your teammates' neck like that and just let that slide. And I saw a half-hearted effort from Karl Anthony. I don't know what the hell that was. Karl Anthony Towns was doing, but like he looked like he tried to grab Draymond Green. Draymond tucked the chin, so we couldn't quite get underneath there. But I didn't see any passion behind that too. But for what I don't understand is why is everybody so scared of Draymond? Like, listen, like some of
You
y'all
saw what
same
he
height,
did. You
same
saw what
size.
he did to Jordan
Jordan,
Poole.
yeah, I saw the sucker punch. No. Hold
Hey,
on. Why somebody same height and same size scared of Draymond? What the only advantage he would really have is what want to, because Draymond allegedly wants to fight. But at that point, look, listen, they should have been on Draymond's head. The Minnesota Timberwolves, and that's a bit of a cultural issue. Is y'all just gonna let that happen? Y'all gonna let that happen? No, hell no. Rudy got enough money; he can pay people's fines. You cannot let that happen. And I certainly would be, even though I think a lot of basketball players are inherently soft, right? I just think the nature of the sport is, in between flopping. I mean, I do think so, but man, I would love to see players on that team actually about that action, and to watch that go down and Draymond just dragging Rudy.
okay, now I've lost JT, so I don't know what we having some. I don't know what's going on the stream, but JT, you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
It's probably just me. It's probably me. But go
Somebody,
go ahead.
you know what I mean? Yeah. No,
Finish your thought. I
To
got
watch
you
Karl
now.
Anthony Towns looking like a small child, stumbling down the court after Draymond, and trying to, quote unquote, break that up. It just was a bad look for the Timberwolves. And to be honest, if I'm Rudy Gobert, I might be a little bit upset because I feel like I need my teammates to have my back a little bit more than
Yeah, and I think they should have. I think all those valid points. I just thought the whole thing is hilarious. Listen, and the funny thing is they're giving out. So the funny thing is, I think Monty McCutcheon, who's like the head of officiating for the NBA, came out and said, and because they asked him, of course, about the technical fouls to Giannis for staring, and he was like, well, we want to give out those techs. So they basically defended the decision to give the techs for staring and those kind of things because they said we think that leads to on-court physical altercations. Well, no, the stuff you saw the other night leads to on-court physical altercations. So you didn't take anybody up for looking at anybody, and you're still getting fights on the court. And I think, again, I'm not surprised that it was 5 games because that was a night that was supposed to be, again, the NBA is pushing this in-season tournament. That was an in-season tournament night, and now I haven't heard anybody talk about the in-season tournament or anything like it. They're talking about the fight that went down between Draymond Green and Rudy Gobert. And Rudy Gobert, the Frenchman, so I think people think, anyway, people think certain things about Rudy. I mean, like Rudy Gobert's own teammates don't like him at times, so I think that's a problem. And then finally, JT, this Kelly Oubre. Interesting enough, TMZ, as we're on the air, TMZ has obtained footage of Kelly Oubre Jr. returning home minutes after he's hit by a car on Saturday. Again, they talk about lack of surveillance. Sources say that Kelly Oubre, who was new to the city, was not interviewed by cops until hours after the accident at the hospital, and he was unsure of the exact location. Little odd, but again, they do have the video. Again, he looks like he's just coming in. My thing about that looks just normal that he's just walking into his apartment building or whatever. My thing is, how the hell does TMZ get foot? How do they do this stuff? How are they able to get footage of his Ring camera? How do they? What are they doing?
That's wild. Somebody, that's what I'm curious. How they get the Ring camera footage? How do they get that? But I don't know. Is it? I mean, is this some sort of apartment or something, or is this?
I believe now again.
Condo
this looks like his apartment or condo.
Yeah, so
that
maybe
he's walking into.
So maybe there's like some sort of closed circuit something, or somebody did it. I mean, look, money makes the world go round, guys. I hate to say it, but money will get people talking. Money will get you access to a whole lot of things if you're willing to pay it, because somebody's always willing to give it to you. And that's just that's in a lot of different aspects of life. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not sure. But what I will say though is that what you don't want to see if you're Kelly Oubre is the team say, well, wait a minute, you got injured away from the court because something happened or you did whatever, and they try to avoid your earnings, right? Or they try to do that. So I certainly hope that the story, this went down the way he said it did, because if he was doing something else, right, or was not actually hit by the car, and was doing parkour or something silly, I mean, who knows, right? Then you may have a huge, some significant, very, very significant issue on your hands and a dispute brewing. Having said that, though, man, listen, if he got hit by a car, I certainly wish him a speedy recovery, because the injuries reported, seem very challenging.
Yeah, no, yeah, and so yeah, we hopefully that didn't happen. We don't want to see that happen in any event. And so again, but who knows? There's probably more to the story that will come out. The Bucks win it 128-112 over the Raptors. Big time win for the Milwaukee Bucks tonight. JT, any final words on the Bucks getting a dub?
This is what we wanted to see, right? Even the people who expected the Bucks to go 73-9 this year and to blow out every opponent by 10 plus, right? Is what you want to see. You want to see this team come out firing on all cylinders and be excited. I think everybody should be excited. They should be very happy that you saw Beasley step up. You saw guys step up with the absence of your superstar, and we're going to be all right. More importantly, we didn't let Toronto do us the way they did a week and a half ago or however when. We showed that, we definitely are not going to just roll over and we're going to take the fight to them. We saw that tonight. So, man, Bucks fans, be excited. Take a shot tonight, have a drink, and look forward to seeing you on Friday against the Hornets.
So Friday night, I'll be at the game. We'll figure out what we're going to do on the post-game show. But it'll be fun. Then they also play again Saturday. Join us on T's and Q's Saturday morning. Should be a normal time, 10 to noon on 97.3 The Game and iHeartRadio. We're going to talk about some things to talk about tonight, as well as just a host of different issues. I thought it was another one, great one. Appreciate everybody for listening. Follow, like, subscribe, all of that at TCIIIESQ, at CCC Bucks Show on all the social media platforms. The Cream City Crossover on YouTube. Again, we appreciate everybody for watching and listening to us tonight. Don't take no wooden nickels